Young. Younger than Ben. Well, I used to be as young as Ben, but this time that I'm thinking about was younger than that. And I knew, me and Nathan, we knew each other back then, because we're from the same household. And we had this friend, who was more Nathan's friend than my friend. And we hadn't talked to him for a long time, because he moved away. And then there's this invention that they have out called a Facebook. And apparently you use this Facebook, you don't put it on your face quite so much as you used to anymore. You just look at it, right? And other people look at you looking at it, from what I understand. Anyway, anywho, he looked at my face on my Facebook, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to come visit you guys." And he visited us, and he was at my brother's house. His name's Elijah. It's okay. And I was at Monday night. I was at Dale's house, and I went over to Nathan's house to visit him, for a few minutes. And there are 1,000 things he could have said to me, right? He could have said, "Hey, it's been a long time," or "Hey, nice looks," or something nice. The first thing he said to me as soon as I walked in, "Hey, remember when you fell out of my mom's tree?" That was the first thing. Does anybody remember last week's memory verse?
I do.
Come up and say it. Does anybody else remember the memory verse?
Any other guy that remembers the memory?
Okay. Just come up and pretend like you do. Ready? You guys need to listen. Set, go.
In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. Hebrews 12:4.
Hebrews 12:4. So, the point of my previous story was that we're remembered. We do things, and certain things are more memorable than others. Certain things come up more often than others. Like, if someone says, "Oh, he's a liar," chances are, most of the things he says, well, if they're telling the truth about him being a liar, in which case they'd be a liar. But chances are, most things he says are lies. Or he's a fast runner. Chances are, most of the time when he runs, he's fast. I mean, that's how we remember people. And the Bible has something to say about this. It says, to be experts at what is good, be excellent at what is good, be innocent of evil. And we've studied that already. Do this thing. Do these things over and over. Get into this habit. Be this kind of person. Be like Christ. Have the mind of Christ. And the Bible talks about that over and over and over. It's one of the themes. To be like Christ. In fact, when we walk around and we say we're Christians, it's like saying, I'm living like Christ. And in the Bible, in this particular verse, it says, "Thus says the Lord." He's talking to, this is in Zechariah, and I was reading Zechariah throughout December and just studying it, and this is what God says to him. He says, "Execute true justice, show mercy and compassion, everyone to his brother." And when I was reading this, the word that stuck out to me was true. Execute true justice. It means be real. When you say that you're being just, use true justice in that. And that makes a difference, right? Because we could be and we do it all the time, right? We're the same age that I was when I was in high school. And sometimes we do things for the appearance of being nice. We want, I wasn't going to say this, but maybe I was. When I was in high school, there was this girl who used to talk to me a lot, and she had a problem with one of her friends, and she came up to me and she was saying, "Oh, she's like blah 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 blah, and I hate it when she does this, and I hate it when she does this." And I was like, "Well, why are you telling me? Why don't you tell her?" And she said, "This is heck of funny." She's like, "Well, I want her to think that I'm nice." And I was like, "You want her to think you're nice, but you're not nice. You just want her to think that." And we get caught up in that all the time. We want people to think we're nice, whether or not we're nice. We want people to think we're good, people, or bad people sometimes, whether or not we are that. And the Bible says, execute true justice. Show mercy and compassion, everyone to his brother. Everyone. Not just the people, who have a desire to to be thought up as good. And we get into this trap of thinking, I need to do these good things so other people think I'm good, right? I want her to think I'm nice. Or guys, I want him to think I don't know. Or I want her to think I'm strong. I don't know. And later on in the same chapter, there's a really cool few chapters in Zechariah. If you want to read them, 7, 8, and 9 are awesome. It's a lot about representing and really being true. And it talks about how you could fast all you want, but really if you're not fasting for the right things, you're just going hungry. And you're not doing good to anyone, not even yourself. You're in fact depriving your body of the food that it needs. And it's kind of funny. But anyway, it goes on to say, it's like, God says, if it's marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of these people, will it also be marvelous in my eyes? He's saying, if you do these things that I've told you to do, that are right, whether or not it's marvelous to them, it's going to be marvelous to me, and that's what matters. And chances are, if it's marvelous to me, a God who made the universe, it's going to be marvelous to the people. And really, if your heart's right, it doesn't matter if it's marvelous to them. If you're executing true justice, what does it matter? This is true justice. And at the end of chapter 8, there's a prophecy, and I love this prophecy because it really gets me on fire for being more like Christ and following harder after God. And I want to share it with you guys as I finish. It says, in those days 10 men from every language of the nation shall grasp the sleeve of a Jewish man, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. This is kind of cool, right? What would it take for us to live a life that people would actually come up to us and say, hey, we've heard that God's with you, and we want to go with you now. If God's with you, we want to be with you too. We've seen that you execute true justice. You've showed us that you can execute true justice, that you can show this compassion, that you have something different about you. That's cool. That's a great way to represent and a great way to minister to others. If we're executing this true justice, right? So, Cody, will you help me pass out half? And Haley? Thanks. There was a football player named Barry Sanders, and there was another football player named Ocho Cinco.
Big difference.
Really, this Ocho Cinco guy, he literally had his name changed to Ocho Cinco. His name is Chad Johnson, and he went into wherever you have to go to, a state judge or law office, and said, the National Football League won't let me put the words Ocho Cinco on the back because he's 85, right? So he wanted to be Ocho Cinco, 85. And he said, they really won't let me put that on the back of my jersey unless it's my name. So he went through the process to literally change. Now his mom has to call him Chad Ocho Cinco. And if he gets married, it'll be Mr. and Mrs. Chad Ocho Cinco. I don't know if he's married. I don't really care about him much. True justice, remember, compassion. Okay. But I really think in 10 years, he'll be remembered for being a goofball. And I'm not saying that's bad, because I might be remembered for that too. But there was another football player named Barry Sanders, who, even though he shredded up they literally, when he was done, they had to take the carpet off the field and put out new carpet because he was so good. He cut up the field every week. But really, a lot of people remember him because of his humbleness. At the end of every play, when it was a big deal back then, and this was the early 90s and stuff, it was a huge deal. Instead of doing your little, bob and weave thing, to just spike the football, because it's easy. You score a touchdown, you grab it, and you throw it as hard as you can into the ground, because that shows your strength, right? It shows that you can throw a football 3 feet straight down into the ground and make it bounce up probably 3.5 feet, because the ball doesn't really bounce that well because it's shaped like a peanut. But his move when he scored a touchdown, he didn't, spike it and do I'm sure he could dance because he can run, and he danced when he ran. But he didn't do it. His move was he would walk over, hand it to the ref, go back, sit on the bench, be ready for next time. And that's what people remembered him for. And I got remembered for falling out of a tree. Because that was something I did. Right? I wouldn't have been remembered for it if it wasn't something that I did. So you guys won't be remembered for this mercy and this compassion and this walking with the Lord if it's not something that you do. And if it is something that you do, chances are if you're doing it right, it will stand out. It will be marvelous in their eyes. So that's my encouragement to you guys, to do that. And to really execute true justice.